with the latest on the corporate front, all the market trends, expert opinion, and sound business advice. It is your unique window into the business world, direct from the heart of China.
Hello and welcome to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Coming up, we will have half an hour of business news and analysis. On today's show, the number of internet users in China has reached 1 billion. What does it mean for China's digital economy? And China's leading electric car maker BYD has announced an investment of $1 billion in Turkiye. And now let's begin with our top story. The number of internet users in China has been increasing. A report on China's internet development says the number exceeded 1 billion in the year 2023. The total was 25 million higher than the previous year. And meanwhile, the report also shows that internet availability has reached 77.5%. China has been accelerating the construction of critical internet infrastructure with over 3 million 5G base stations in service by the end of last year. And China has also made efforts to popularize information-based services and narrow the digital divide. So for more on this, joined us on the line now are Professor Qu Qiang, Fellow of Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China, Andy Mark, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. So first, Yan, I will start with you. So how has the internet facilitated China's economy in the past few years?
Right. So the internet is the core driver, the core technology of building the so-called digital economy, which is now accounted for about 40% of the GDP. So when you think about the internet penetration, it really is integrated in the wide range of basically economic lives. When you think about, on the production side, from smart factories to services sector like e-commerce or online education, and then from people's daily lives like smart homes, digital payment system, and all of these are very important part of the economy and the daily lives of the people. So I think this is really the driving force going forward to build the high quality productive force and also to push China's high level development going forward. So I think this is very important, especially when you think about China's internet is really powered by the 5G technology, which is a lot better than the older generations. And China is taking a lead road in the 5G technologies. As you just mentioned, China has now over 3 million 5G towers compared to the United States, which had at most 300,000. So China is building 6 times more in 3 months of 5G towers than the United States was building in the past 3 years from 2019 to 2021. So anyway, I think China is playing a very important role in developing the digital technologies and also integrate that into its economy and driving its economy forward.
So Andy, the internet availability in China reached over 77% by the year 2023, and China's digital economy made up more than 40% of the country's total GDP. So what do you think are the main factors that contribute to China's digital economy fast growth?
Well, Zhao Yang, I think there are 3 components to this. So the first is hardware. And here, hardware includes infrastructure, so the telecommunications infrastructure that provides internet access. But it also includes consumer devices, whether we're talking about laptops or primarily smartphones, which is how many people access the internet today. Affordable, high quality, well-designed smartphones is a very important hardware component. And then, of course, we have to think about software. And this is the operating systems as well as the apps, everything from ride-sharing apps, digital wallets like Alipay, WeChat Wallet, and then government policy as well. And I think that these 3 factors together really, I think, can explain just how quick, how vigorous, and how successful the rollout of the digital economy has been in China.
And Professor Chu, so China is also moving fast in launching the digital currency. So what do you think is the purpose of the digital yuan, and what's the incentive for customers, to use it?
Well, I think China will have very, very good digital economy, and everybody knows about it. In China, probably you can use the digital economy for every front of your life, from waiving the taxi to paying in the restaurant or shopping online, and everything in China basically are cashless right now. So in order to accommodate to that kind of the situation, I think the government guided the direction of having this digital currency. And this is very safe and also is guaranteed by the government credit. It's not like Bitcoin. Basically, they only being used underground. And this is, fully legal and, very safe a way of payment. And it become very, very efficient because if all this currencies has been digitalized, all the things has been circulating online and it become very fast and very easy to use. So which comes to the third point, which is can help China to promote inclusiveness in financial services. You have to understand in many corner of China or in many corner of the whole world, not every person have the privilege to have the bank account, or somewhere they do not have the infrastructure or the finances. Well, you probably will take electronic payment for granted, but that's not something very easy to get access to if you are living in the remote area. For example, if a poor farmer living in a mountainous area, the nearest the bank branches is like 100 kilometers away from them. So how can they register a bank account? And hence, they cannot register Alipay or WeChat, or in your country, it's like Uber Pay or like PayPal. It's basically impossible. But with the digital currency, you don't need a bank account, and you can get access to digital services. You can still use the Uber, you can still use Didi or the Alipay and etc. So much easier, and also it's very easy for the government to offer all kinds of the subsidies or the social relief to the vulnerable people as long as they don't have a bank account. For example, the government can just distribute the relief funds to each of their electronic wallet directly, and all these financial support can be traced. So no bribery, no embezzlement will happen. So it's going to be very transparent and clean. And last but not least, I think is internationalization of renminbi is also very important, because in many adjacent countries, renminbi has been used for the cross-border trade. So we also need this kind of the digital currency to trade all the kind of the trade instead of using the paper cash, because paper cash sometimes will become the tool for the money laundering across the border, and that's something we don't want to see. Hence, I think that's the reason why the government won't have the digital yuan.
So yeah, you earlier mentioned that China wants to facilitate the deep integration of digital technologies into the real economy. So what can be done on this front? And could you give us some examples of which sectors have been, flourishing during the boom in the digital economy?
Right. So I think the 5G internet has spread over 40 sectors. And so all these includes, for example, industries, healthcare, education, transport, and logistics. And I think one of the most prominent areas where these internet or 5G technologies can be applied to is in the smart factories. This is basically based on China's very large and very solid manufacturing base. And these smart factories are holding the promise to improve both the product development cycles, to improve production, efficiencies, reduce the defective rates of products, and also, very importantly, reduce and economize energy uses. So I think this is a very promising area for, the digital technologies to be applied to. But I think there are also other areas. So I think Chiqiang mentioned many of at the service sector, people can use, cashless payments. Right now, China, is a cashless society. The cash payments only account for about 3.7% of the total transactions. And with digitalization of the currency, I think this is going to continue to improve in terms of securities, in terms of efficiency. And so I think, for consumers and also for businesses, these types of general purpose technologies like the internet are going to be very helpful to apply and to be upgraded to all of the production, to services, and basically to people's daily lives. So I think, again, this is the very important leading edge technology, and China has been developing and taking the lead road. And now I think also in terms of AI industries, AI technologies, that is also very important to be powered by all these fast, speed, and secure internet access. So I think, there's a lot of promising areas for the digital technologies to be integrated into.
So, Andy, as we mentioned, the internet has also transformed the people's life. And in your opinion, what have been the most profound economic changes, and how can artificial intelligence be used in different industries and sectors?
Well, I think that really there isn't any sector or any aspect of people's lives that have not been profoundly affected. But I think from an economic perspective, certainly in daily life, digitization through smartphones has reduced friction, increased the velocity of transactions. So whether we're buying groceries online, ordering carryout, ordering transportation, this has had the effect of making things happen more quickly. So we know that with economic statistics, we not only measure volume, but rate. So this has increased the velocity. I think what's also very important and worth pointing out is the impact that it's had on the healthcare sector. Go to a Chinese hospital today. Everything is digitized from registering, paying, looking at your results is all online, all digital. And I think this has had a tremendously positive impact on healthcare services, making them more accessible, more efficient, and raising the quality as well. So AI, I think we just heard it's a GPT or general purpose technology, like electricity, that it affects everything. So I think we can expect in areas like healthcare for AI to play an increasingly greater role in diagnosis, helping physicians identify what the disease is, what is the best course of treatment. To me, sounds like one of the more promising areas. And I think there's many other aspects of artificial intelligence, from AI, robotics, and smart manufacturing to perhaps home companionship for the elderly. We're only starting to see the very beginnings of today.
Professor Chu, so actually artificial intelligence, industrial internet, and promoting cooperation in the digital age, why are these important for today's economy? Could you give us some examples?
Well, I think China has done it extremely, well. Especially Chinese, industries and government paid a lot of attention to connecting the AI internet towards the real economy, because we believe the ultimate purpose for the AI and the internet combined together is to free people from this grinding, desperate, boring kind of the manual labor job, and elevate people's work into a higher level, for example, creativity and innovation. And I think that's the ultimate difference between China's digital economy towards many other countries. For example, since the very beginning, Chinese, digitalization, Chinese digital economy are very, very closely bonded with, real economy. For example, China achieved a very high level of the robo-made manufacturing. You go to any kind of the Chinese manufacturing factory, you will see the robo arms and the robot has been, very, very efficiently used. And also, if you go to the harbor of China, even one of the small, normal-sized one, for example, like Dongying Port, which is very normal, not very big one like Shanghai and Shenzhen or Guangzhou. Dongying Port is just like another, small port in Shandong province in a small-sized town called Dongying. And if we go there, we find out that the port is fully automated. And, they have driverless ferry, they have driverless lorry, and also they got fully automated the machinery of the port, to upload and download all kinds of the containers. So basically, you only need some technicians and managers in there, and to keep the full dock, operating very, very, smoothly, and save a lot of people's labor, and also, protect the environment. So this is just one small example, and you can find many of the examples in our daily life. Well, some other country believes that most of the AI should be used for, painting the pictures, making the video clips, taking away creative jobs for people. But in China, we believe that kind of job should be left to, people, and we should free people from those manual labor and leave that to machine. So I think that's the difference, and that's the belief of Chinese digital economy.
So, Yan, so what challenges do you think does the development of the industrial internet or AI pose for workers and management? And what kind of knowledge and skills training are needed to adapt to those new changes?
Right. So I think that goes back to what Professor Chu was mentioning. I think, China aims to use the AI technologies to save, the manual labor jobs from, human beings and relieve them to the more brain-centered kind of jobs. What that means is that there are many, manual labor jobs or low-skilled jobs, repetitive jobs will be replaced by artificial intelligence or many other kinds of automatic technologies. So I think this is the problem for some of the service sector jobs, which now, it's really hosting a lot of, low-skilled workers. For example, driving taxi drivers or, delivery workers. So I think this is important to realize that some of these jobs will disappear gradually. And so we need to prepare our workers to upgrade their skills to move them on to those more, brain-centered jobs. I think this is very important to reduce the kinds of inequality in the societies, but also really to utilize the talents in a more efficient way. So some of the ways I think China's government have been working very hard on, for example, is to bridging the digital gap between the rural and the urban, sectors. We know that the urban sector internet penetration rate has reached 85%, but in the rural area right now it's still 66.5%. So I think a lot more work can be done to lay down the infrastructure to connect the rural sectors and really, enable the rural residents to use the internet to really improve their economic lives. For example, we know a lot of live streaming now it's helping rural residents to sell their products. And I think this is one of the very important applications of these kinds of technologies. But at the same time, I think, China is really having a lot of promises in developing these commercial prospects of AI because China has very efficient internet network and other technologies, and China also has the largest consumer base. China has, really large pool of AI talents. I think China now account for 61% of the global AI patents. And China also has very good energy sources, including many alternative energy sources. And so these are also very important to, power the AI applications. So I think long story short is that there's a lot of potential for China to apply the AI technologies to improve productivities, to create better jobs for the people. But yes, we need to improve education. We need to improve digital infrastructure and so on in order to really allow the technology to spread to every corner of societies and not letting anyone behind.
Well, we're speaking with Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University, Professor Qu Qiang, Fellow of Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China, and also Andy Mark, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. And after a short break, BYD has announced an investment of $1 billion in Turkiye. Stay with us. You're listening to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. China's leading electric car maker BYD has announced a significant investment of $1 billion in Turkiye. The strategic move is expected to have a positive impact on Turkish auto industry and enhance China's capacity for exporting electric vehicles to the European Union. So, Andy, first, why is BYD making this investment now?
Well, I think there are tactical reasons for this, Zhao Yang, as well as strategic reasons. So from a tactical perspective, of course, because of concerns in the European Union about the competitiveness of the Chinese EV is one reason. But I think the strategic reason is more interesting. So if we look at BYD, it is a company that, in some ways, I think brings to mind General Motors. In that, in the early days of the automotive industry, there was the Ford Motor Company, where Henry Ford said, "You can have any color you want as long as it's black," meaning that they only offered one product, that they were very efficient at manufacturing. Whereas General Motors took a very different approach and said, "We're going to offer one car for every budget." So they had Chevrolets that were for budget minded consumers. They had nicer cars like Buicks, and they had Cadillac for the luxury segment. And I think BYD is pursuing this kind of strategy on a supercharged basis, where it's not only a range of models from budget models to super luxury cars, but also buses, trucks for everyone in the world. It is really building the foundation for offering, again, transportation for everyone, everywhere.
So BYD sold 3 million vehicles last year and its exports more than tripled. And so besides Turkiye, BYD also has or is building factories in Brazil, in Hungary, and it opened a plant in Thailand recently. So how do you view the company's expansion and global competitiveness?
Right. So I would agree with Andy. BYD's expansion has both technical but also strategic reasons. And I think this makes a lot of sense. I think for a company like BYD, they have been able to take advantage the scale effect. The more they build, the more they're able to lower the cost. And so it makes a lot of sense to engage in the kind of global expansion to further improve the efficiency. But it's also important, I think, as he mentioned, these kinds of EV industries is a global public good. What that means is that it will really help to bring down the cost of green transition in helping, to transition the transportation industry, which is a big, carbon emitter. So I think this is important, not just to put all these nationalist and all these protectionism kind of logic in mind. It's important to realize how important, technology is going to help to, accelerate the global green transition and really help to fight climate change. So BYD is very competitive. And I think, in terms of all these arguments about the threat, I think it's more important to see it as both a challenge, but also an opportunity. The opportunity is to build this kind of integrated supply chain to make all car productions more efficient. So as you mentioned, BYD is now building in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, also in Eastern European countries. And so all of these are able to bring the cost-effective and the great variety of cars into these markets to cater for the consumer demands. I think without this kinds of manufacturing power of China, it's very difficult for many other countries, especially in the developing world, to get access to these affordable and efficient cars. And let's not forget, the global south is really, the expanding markets, and there's a great need for these kinds of global public good. So I think it's important to see the BYD expansion not only as a successful story of a single individual company, but really seeing this as a global trend, as a very important improvements in terms of integrating technologies to really fight global, climate change and also allow developing countries to accelerate their green transition.
And Professor Chu, so what do you think? Are the China's EVs really posing a threat to the European auto industry as the European Commission claimed?
No, not at all. Well, there's always, wax and wanes in one industry. I still remembered when the Japanese car just rise up and everybody, what they say about Japanese car, and then South Korean auto industry rise up, and we heard the similar, statement. And also before that, when the European auto industry rise up, we hear American market says the same thing. Now it's China's turn. So whenever there's a new player gets in the room, the other players existing will probably will have some, suspicions or, some kinds of the complaint. But later they will understand every time when there's a competition comes in, it's good for the whole ecology. And every time when the new player comes in, it's good for the efficiency, innovation, and also it's good for making a bigger pie for the whole international auto market. And in European Union, I think it is already now and already so. Because if you take a look at the champions like Renault, like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and Stellantis, they all have different kind of the what we call joint investment or joint venture with Chinese players. For example, Volvo has already purchased one of the Chinese auto companies, stock. It's called Polestar, as well as Stellantis, the buy one called Leap Motor, as well as Volkswagen and also Mercedes and BMW. They all have this kind of investment. And also in their own EV, they've been using Chinese car parts. For example, the infotainment systems are from China, or sometimes the motor system from China, or the ECU from China. So actually, when these two continents or two motor industry have been working together, they've been making a bigger pie for each other. And also they're making each other, better and more, further improved. So I think eventually it's going to be a good thing. Just take a look at, the Japanese car and the Korean car. When they enter the whole market, the European vehicle and American vehicle doesn't disappear, but also everybody gets better. And also right now, the motor users has actually been, amplified. So I don't think this is a threat. And I think both industries and both governments, two regions need to look forward into a longer future, with a vision in their eyes. And I don't think this political narrative should blind people's eyes, or we will make the whole industry develop slower and hurt the whole market as well as, especially for the consumers.
Well, we're speaking with Professor Qu Qiang, Fellow of Belt and Road Research Center at Minzu University of China, Andy Mark, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for China and Globalization, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Thank you so much for listening.